Hello, Internet. This is Daniel with Driving and Dragons, and I'm back with the next Indie Tabletop Role-Playing Game Month video, this time talking about modern games that kind of caught my eye for free, and I am going to give one quick little PSA. Indie publishers, please stop making your quick start rules, your map pack, your extra art asset, your double adventure, anything. Stop listing these things as core rule books. It is actually very annoying, and it is a turnoff for your game when somebody goes in, like me, for instance, when I go in and I say, hey, I want to narrow this down to core rule books that are for a certain genre, and it's, oh, this isn't the core rule book. You need the core rule book to play this. This is a map pack. This is the additional character compendium. This is the extra art assets or something of that nature. Stop doing that. Don't mislabel your product in the queue when you upload it to places like like DriveThru RPG. Stop doing that. It's annoying, and it's more of a turnoff than anything else. But anyway, on the other side, we're going to get into some modern games that are available for free download from DriveThru RPG that you could try out at your table here in the near future. See you on the other side. So I was originally going to do historical games and modern games separately. But when I ran free core rule books and historical through DriveThru RPG's sorting software, sorting options, it really kind of, all the modern stuff kind of got dumped into the historical section, so it really kind of makes sense to do both of them. Just like I did with the sci-fi games, what I'm really looking for here is I'm trying to avoid anything that's like a known major publisher, and I'm trying to look for stuff that just sticks out to me as interesting. I haven't played these games. Most of them I have not read the first word of the actual rules to them. All I'm doing is I'm kind of taking a glance at some of the reviews or like the review scores for the ones that have them. And more or less, this is an indie game that caught my eye for one reason or another when I was scrolling through DriveThru RPG. That is something that could very easily be a game that could be downloaded for free and taken to my table just to have some fun with. Something that is not a Paizo or a WotC or a Chaosium or Artel Saurian or another larger publisher. So, with that out of the way, just moving forward here a bit, let's talk about some of these games that I found in the quote-unquote historic section. The first one that I'm going to talk about is Nevermore. Now, the Nevermore RPG, it looks at the beginning like it breaks my rule on quick start guides because it is listed as a quick start guide. However, it includes the whole basic rules and a complete adventure. And other than the pre-generated character sheets, there's not anything else that is from this publisher on DriveThru RPG right now. So you do get the full game for it, even though it's considered a quick start guide. Nevermore it caught me with the name, obviously, and the cover art with the raven sitting on the skull. And it's a role-playing game of American Gothic horror. It's no surprise to anyone who's ever listened to me before. I'm a big fan of horror-style games just because I think there is so much that can be done without having to rely on rule systems, so much that can be done with dice, so many little tricks that can be done to drag your players into a more immersive experience and leave them with something that they remember better, that they remember more and have more stories of. Just something that I'm pretty big on. And having a new horror genre game that comes out, especially one that apparently has some heavy influence from Edgar Allan Poe, just seems to be the kind of game that I would love to pull out for Halloween or for some other spooky night break from the action from the hack and slash style games. Go in the opposite direction of our characters are superheroes. They're basically invincible to the we're infinitely vincible and we're dead the second we go the wrong way and we don't know what's around the corner. So Nevermore just kind of stuck out to me because it doesn't only give you the full rules, it also gives you a additional narrator guide as well as the complete adventure to play with. So it's a quick, easy download that you can just download, turn around, put it at your table. Let's rock and roll. The next one I saw was Of Point and Pommel, which is billed as a historic low fantasy role-playing game. It's got a very simple cover that stood out to me a little bit. So it's got some creativity to it, but written with nothing but a desire to bring the history, general feel, and combat of the 14th and early 15th centuries to the tabletop. Brutal, historically accurate, with no care for balance, always opting to make weapons, armor, and other things operate as they would in real life, and attempting to compile more sources throughout the book. So, obviously, being a game from a smaller developer, there's some stuff that he would like to bring to the table later and include, but I like the idea of a more gritty, realistic, super low fantasy setting and super low magic setting medieval combat style RPG. So this, and especially if he does get around to being able to release future editions and stuff that have some of these historical sources in them for how they work, even if this game didn't become something that was a fixture at your table, it could become a very strong resource for your other games, especially your fantasy games. And the look of it is something that caught my eye. It stood out to me. And when I take a look at something like that, what's the risk in free? At least what he has is pretty professionally done. It looks like he's good solid artwork, and his his reviews are solid, and he's got good player feedback in the in his comments and discussion sections. So, Of Point and Pommel is a game that kind of stuck out to me in that historical / modern genre. Next thing that kind of stood out to me was Duty and Honor. Duty and Honor is from what I like to consider kind of a forgotten era in historic games. You get all kinds of World War II, World War I, modern tanks, near future, far future games. You get all kinds of Bronze Age, chariots, Roman Age, Middle Ages, Dark Ages. You get tons of that stuff. Feudal eras. What you don't see a lot of is Napoleonic era. And Duty and Honor comes out as Europe is aflame. Napoleon rules Europe, and his armies press through the Iberian Peninsula to gain total control, and the British army under the Duke of Wellington is there to save the day. It is clearly got a little bit of a pro-British slant to the system, but the time period as well as some of the art stood out to me. And then when I went in to look at the blurb and look at what they got to it, it touts that it has an abstract skirmish system to help with company-sized combats and to table your characters at the center while still allowing you to have the commanding officer type features. A mission system that embeds the feeling of military game while ensuring that everyone gets to have the same time in the spotlight. So it looks like they put some thought into it. I like the idea that there is some kind of battlefield system involved, because mass combat in general is something that is sorely lacking in most role-playing games. So Duty and Honor stood out to me for those reasons, and at free, you really can't go wrong giving the, I think it's Omihedron Games, a shot on it. Following up with that, the next one that came to me was Satanic Panic. Now, Satanic Panic apparently is still very much in development, but is a tabletop role-playing game about bringing the evil of tabletop role-playing games into the world, or stopping tabletop role-playing games from coming in. That is a very much tongue-in-cheek thing that speaks to my own kind of sarcastic sense of humor. But They say it's a tabletop role-playing game set in the fictional 1970s and 80s where players take on the role of a secret government agents tasked with combating the evils of tabletop gaming. And they work as a team with a common purpose to contain, control, and eliminate the threat to the world, which is just, to me, like I said, it's a unique take on turning something that's a big part of tabletop role-playing game history and turning it into the game itself. It's about the most meta thing you can think of. So Satanic Panic kind of stuck out to me. And then the next two that stood out to me also kind of stand out in the same sort of way. They're kind of meta. They're off the beaten path. They're a little sarcastic in a lot of ways. And WizBot Games put out No Rest for the Wicked. No Rest for the Wicked. And I think the blurb kind of says it all. Ever wondered what supervillains do on their day off? Worry no more. You play as dastardly villains trying to accomplish all of their errands before they get a chance to begin their world-dominating scheme. You're trying to go through stupid stuff like gathering your laundry, going to the post office, visiting the grocery store, and that sort of thing, while not giving in to your evil tendencies with regular people. It is kind of a reverse anti-role-playing game where you are actively trying to avoid the adventures. It plays off of the tendencies towards, we'll just call it stupidity and murder hoboism that a lot of players already have anyway, by making the game staying away from those things when they're very tempting. And that whole idea, to me, just stands out as something that is 100% worth the effort. Even if the game sucks, it's 100% worth the effort because I'm sure there's going to be some really funny stuff that comes out of it. And then, last but not least, Some Assembly Required from Wannabe Games stuck out to me. It had one rule that very simple, or one review that very simply came out and said, "This friggin' rules. All these games are easy and fun, especially good for online parties, and great for things being as they are." Which I'm assuming this was written, it was in 2020, so it was in the middle of the COVID thing. So what is it? You play as action figures pitted against the household. So your army men, you're the WWE wrestling figure, you're the G.I. Joe, and you're going up against pets, people, other toys. You can be, all kinds of crazy stuff. How durable is your plastic? The entire game was apparently created on Twitch and is just an exercise in creativity and fun. And to me, those are some of the best games to have. Some of the best games you can have are the ones that are just fun to snatch up on a Sunday afternoon or a Friday night when there's nothing else to do. The kind of thing that you can grab the family and play and have a goofy, fun time with, or you can take to your tabletop group and have another game with, just to kind of break up the monotony or break up the seriousness of a more in-depth role-playing game. And so it just kind of stood out to me. So when I took a look at historical games and the modern era and all that, the games that stuck out the most to me after looking over hundreds of them and skipping God knows how many beta tests, map packs, character sheets, and other stuff that has no business being in the core rule section, I came up with the Nevermore RPG, Of Point and Pommel, Duty and Honor, Satanic Panic, No Rest for the Wicked, and Some Assembly Required as games that stood out to me. Do the same. Go in there, click Core Rule Books, click Free, set it to historical games, and tell me what catches your eye. What is something that looks like it might be fun to you? And I'll see you guys next time when I take a look at some horror rule books. See you guys next time.